Looking at enrollment and transfer, one of the challenges we have is an imbalance of our two student populations. Again, in Spanish, we have the native speakers, and this is a group of students that we have not served well in the English only. So we need to be filling those spots. And what is a challenge is that we currently have a process called the local focus option plans, and each building has a unique set of policies and practices that allow different numbers of native language speakers. And so looking at, again, that survey with principals, identifying what are the things that do need to be common across the district, and then where is it okay to be unique. But they are problematic in that some plans allow different numbers of students than others as far as the native language and the balance between neighborhood and magneted schools. And so I think this group knows that ideally in a dual language program you want about half speakers of Spanish and half speakers of English. The issue in our less commonly taught languages, which for us is Japanese, Mandarin, and Russian, is that while we don't have a critical mass of native speakers of those languages, we have a number of students who are what are referred to as heritage language students. So in other words, if you look back at Woodstock, a big thrust of that program starting was parents who had adopted children from China, wanting to maintain that cultural identity through the linguistic approach, and we have a number of these students in our district. So being more strategic about that is going to upset the apple cart, because when we look at the Japanese and the Mandarin program, and possibly in the future the Russian program, that would be increasing the number of slots for students who are speakers of those languages, potentially at the expense of native English speakers who would normally access those. And transportation is a huge issue for our open enrollment and transfer. Many of the families are not accessing Beach's program because of the transportation issue, and I'm talking about our Spanish-speaking families. And so I would pose that counting on parental transportation for access is inherently inequitable. And the future consideration of transportation that could look at our students for whom the language is spoken at home, again, this is a group that we consider at risk, and the data certainly shows we need to do something different. And so looking at secondary program development, I'll talk a little bit about our K through 8s, but basically what we have is a need for critical mass to be able to provide robust programs. So when we went from about 3 middle schools for Spanish-speaking graduates to 8, because of our K through 8s, we now have 8 sites that are staffing for this. We end up competing with ourselves for these very difficult to find teachers. And so what it looks like often in a K through 8, because of turnover, the attrition, you are either taking 2 classes that got very small, this class of 14 merges with this class of 14, so it makes a class of 28 at 5th grade. The challenge with that is the dual language teacher is sitting with 28 students while his or her counterpart has 22, and then the inverse of that is those programs who don't have the opportunity to merge 2 classes in intermediate or middle, and so they are dual language teachers that are saying, yep, I've got 18 kids, and their partner has 26, and the 27th new student is coming in, and they are going to the English only section. Because of the intensity of the 90-10 models, we don't accept students, we rarely accept students in those upper grades. And so that has been a challenge as far as our recruitment of highly qualified endorsed teachers, as well as principals' ability to create a master schedule that is staffed well. And so dual language programs should not cost more once we've gotten past the implementation startup expenses, but they are costing us more when we're trying to provide a program for 12 or 18 students versus 50 or 150. And so Basically, in looking at our expansion, one of the priorities is for us to add sections at those schools that currently have programs. And with the Cesar Chavez scenario, the reason that becomes so important is one of our guiding principles needs to be that we not have elementary school programs with just one class because of the attrition factor. So Woodstock is a very good example of a plan that can work. They have 3 kindergartens with 20 students each, which then convert to 2 first grades of 30 children. With the natural attrition you would expect, that gives you reasonable and comparable class sizes in those upper grades. And then additional sections have to be balanced with the neighborhood attendance issues as well as building space. So again, all of this is in the context of Jefferson's enrollment balancing conversations. And so certainly we do need to build new programs. There's no question that we need, in my opinion, as somebody who is the expert at the table around this, we do need another Spanish language immersion program in the Jefferson region. There is such a demand at Beach, and the students are out there. So we have critical mass of Spanish-speaking students. We also need to consider our less commonly taught languages. We do have some grant funds for Mandarin. I would be very troubled for us to open a Mandarin program and not be talking about Spanish. Also, as Vân will share with you, our fastest growing population of students who are speakers of other languages is Vietnamese. So we do need to consider the Vietnamese or other language possibilities. And so what we look at is the community desire, the resource projection, and that's teachers and books and materials, and the student need as well as the sustainability. But my recommendation is that we not start a program in another K-8 configuration without a plan of possibly identifying the sites to where those kids would go beyond elementary.